Well, once again, we have Lindsay from Canada, who is our friendly pharmacist. Lindsay, thank you so much for coming back.
Hi,
And
John. Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
yeah, it's great to have you. And we love the background, by the way. Is that close to where you live?
Oh, thank you. Yes, this is a lake not too far from my home here, so I thought it might be nice for to
Absolutely,
change things a little bit today.
absolutely. So, Lindsay, we're about 5th of March now, coming up to the weekend. The first question, really, and this video is all focusing on Canada, just you as your Canadian experience, really, and the progress of the pandemic in Canada. How is daily life for you at the moment? Are you heavily restricted? Are there restrictions that you see when you go shopping and things like that?
Yes, so the restrictions in Canada are very much dependent on the region or the province that you live in. And so I can speak for British Columbia as far as my restrictions. We are not to see people outside of our household, indoors or outdoors. We can go shopping. Most shops are open. However, there are definite restrictions in how many people can go into a shop at a time, and restaurants are definitely limited as far as how many people could be in a restaurant. And the advice is to only go out if you absolutely need to. And that varies across Canada. There are areas that have been much more restricted, especially the province of Ontario. So I would say that for me, it's okay. We have adjusted to this life with very little socialization. Fortunately, schools have remained open, but it's been a long winter, John, and I think that everyone in Canada and in the world are really feeling that. So I'm thankful that spring is on the way and vaccinations are also on the way here.
It's strange, isn't it? We have kind of got used to this, but we kind of hate it at the same
Yes,
time. It's
yes.
we look forward to it finishing, but it kind of feels normal in a strange way. I watch pre-lockdown videos, and you might be hugging someone, or two people arguing close together, and you think, well, we used to do that. We used to crowd into a pub. It just looks. You look at those normal events now with almost incredulity because
It's going to
this
be
new
very
normal has been so.
It's going to be very interesting when we do get back to normal.
Mm.
I was even speaking with someone the other day about, Christmas concerts and everyone coming into a large, gymnasium, everyone close together, no masks. That just seems so strange. Whereas a year ago, we would never have had any issue with something like that. So
Mm.
we have gotten used to it, not because we've wanted to, but we don't really have a choice. So.
Yeah. Just tell me one thing you're really looking forward to doing when the restrictions have gone.
I'm
Just one personal thing you really want to do.
Well, I would really like to travel, but I would really, really like to be able to see family. I have family that is not in the same city as me, and it's been very restrictive for them and for me. And so it's going to be great to hug people and share a meal and just not have to worry about COVID-19 for these kinds of occasions anymore.
I agree. I'm also looking forward to a pint of real ale in an English pub, but
Oh, yes.
that's just one of my cultural weaknesses. Right. So how are the numbers going? How's the pandemic numbers going in Canada just now, Lindsay?
Yes, so I mentioned that we all have different levels of restrictions in the provinces and territories, and every area, every community is struggling with COVID-19 cases, community spread, and variants. And so it is going okay because we do have those restrictions. We are seeing that the numbers are starting to drop off, or they have been dropping off significantly in most areas for some time now, but that's with those restrictions. Now we are seeing some areas of Ontario that are starting to open up. They've been in quite a severe lockdown, especially the Toronto and Peel areas of Ontario, and those are slowly starting to open up. So I would say, excuse me, I would say that we are making progress. We are seeing hospitalizations down, deaths are down. However, we also have some fairly serious restrictions in place in different parts of Canada. It's a struggle. People are tired. There was a report out of my province last week saying that British Columbians, when we self-report as to how much we are actually adhering to the public health measures, we are one of the worst in all of Canada. I think only 30% of British Columbians actually report adhering to all public health guidelines. It seems like we're quite rebellious on the West Coast. So it's okay, we're doing all right, but it's not without struggle. It's not without struggle.
So the numbers aren't going down, they're being pushed down. It's the same as the UK. It's an active process. Yeah.
That's right.
Has there been any sort of concerning localized outbreaks that have been a problem?
There have been, and there's a couple that I would like to speak of. I'm glad you asked that today, John. About 6 or 8 weeks ago, one of the issues that I do like to talk about, because I think it's very important, is the tragic story of long-term care in Canada. And I know that this has probably been an issue in the United Kingdom as well. The incredible amount of deaths that we've seen. And in Ontario, there was a care home, it's about 6 or 8 weeks ago, they had a terrible outbreak in Barrie, Ontario. The B117 variant, otherwise known as the UK variant, just ripped through that long-term care home. Every single resident in that care home was infected, and 106 staff members were also infected. There were over 70 deaths at the time I saw the report. There may be more now. So that was just horrific. And some of the reports that have come out of Ontario regarding long-term care, it's horrific what's been happening there. And that's also happened in different places in Canada. But people will be held responsible for this, I am sure, when we get out of this pandemic, and even before. Also,
so you think there has been negligence there that's caused this outbreak?
There definitely has been, and it seems that the for-profit long-term care homes seem to have done in many times more poorly than ones that are not for profit. And we had reports at the end of 2020 of a lot of these care homes even posting a profit and giving bonuses to their executives. And it was just this atrocity. It's awful what has been going on there. And the Barrie, Ontario outbreak is just one example of many. I think that right now in Ontario, they still have 85 or 86 outbreaks in long-term care homes. It's a very high number.
Well, lots of clusters all over the place.
Lots of clusters, even with restrictions, lack of support, lack of provincial and even federal intervention. At one point at the beginning of the pandemic, they did bring the army in to help. That hasn't happened this time. And these long-term care homes will start to do better now because of vaccination.
Yes.
But it's something that definitely needs to be addressed. Another story out of Ontario is the police college outbreak. So just over the last week, a police college there, they had over 90 cases reported. And now they have halted any in-person learning. No concern about the variants there, but it's just another warning as to how quickly this virus can really take off, spread, and affect not only that area where the outbreak happens, but the community itself.
That's so right, because any a cluster is not on a desert island. It's always interconnected with the local community. Yeah. So you mentioned variants there, Lindsay. What is the state of play with the variants of concern in Canada?
So the B117 variant, the UK variant, has been reported or been found in every single province except the territories, the Northwest Territories and Nunavut and the Yukon. So this is spread quite quickly throughout Canada as predicted. I think this was something that could have been prevented, but it has not been. So this is where we are. Now, the South African variant, the B1351 variant, has been detected in 7 provinces. And so that one has not spread everywhere yet. And the P1 variant, the Brazilian variant, has only been found in Ontario thus far. And Canada did put in some restrictions as to people who are coming in to Canada. They do have to have to pay for what they call a quarantine hotel now. They have to wait until they have a negative PCR result. They have to pay for this hotel at their own expense. There are some restrictions, but it's not been perfect. Testing at airports has not been perfect. There's been a lot of things that, you know, it's fine to say something, it's another thing to implement it, right? So it's still been a struggle, and we are seeing the variants are definitely concerning and are spreading in Canada.
So it's UK variant first, South Africa variant second, Brazilian variant third seems to be the kind of...
Only 3 cases so far of the Brazilian variant in all of Canada, and those were found in Ontario.
Yeah. I was just looking at the results from Germany today. I think the B117 UK variant 4 weeks ago was 6% of cases.
Wow.
Now it's 40% of cases.
Yes.
You know, once it gets onto that exponential part of the curve, it can go frighteningly quickly.
Well, the expectation a couple of weeks ago was that by mid to late March, that would be the dominant variant here in Canada. I hope they're wrong, but yes,
I hope they're wrong as well, but I suspect they're not, from what we know about the exponential growth of that new variant and the way it outcompetes.
Yes.
The old variant. It really is simple Darwinian survival of the fittest, and it becomes the most prevalent form, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. We know only too well in the UK from that.
Yes, definitely.
Is the way out of this pandemic vaccination, Lindsay?
Yes, our way out of this pandemic is vaccination. I completely believe that, and I believe that we are even seeing that already in Canada. I know from what we've seen in British Columbia, we've seen vaccinations in long-term care homes, and you can actually see the graphs of where COVID-19 just drops off after about 21, 22 days to 0. And that is going to be mirrored in the community once we can get these vaccines into our community in a larger volume. So it's very encouraging to see that. At the same time, many Canadians are frustrated because we would all like to be vaccinated a lot sooner than has been possible thus far.
What's the problem?
What's the problem? Well, the biggest problem is that Canada does not have any national manufacturing of vaccines. So I think in around 1980, we actually manufactured about 1/5 of all of our drugs and vaccines. And since then, actually, let me just check that, because anyways, since then, that's really dropped off to the point that we depend on other countries for almost all of our medications and all of our vaccines. And this has been very apparent during the pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, Canada had a major problem with acquiring PPE. We had no way to manufacture our own PPE. And now this is very evident with vaccines, the fact that we are dependent on places like the UK and the US. We know that the US is not likely to give us any vaccine until they vaccinated their own, and I do understand that. So this has been very difficult. Now, at the beginning of the pandemic, or a few months into the pandemic, Canada actually did buy a massive amount of vaccine. We had put in huge orders for vaccine. We've actually secured the world's largest number of potential COVID vaccine doses per capita. Yeah. And so it seems that we're good at shopping, but actually, getting these agreements in place and confirming distribution has been very, very challenging. And I know that Canada, at the beginning, we had an agreement with CanSino, and that dropped off, that kind of fell apart. And after that, I don't know if we've been aggressive enough at pursuing these agreements. Now, I don't purport to know what all goes on with these orders, and I'm not in any position to judge these people, but it's very difficult now when we hear that vaccines are coming and then they're not, So it's been a huge frustration in Canada for Canadians, and it sounds like it may be improving. Today we have news that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was just approved. AstraZeneca was approved last week. And these vaccines, of course, are fridge stable. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is only 1 dose as well. And the other piece of news that we have this week is that our National Advisory Committee on Immunization has looked at the evidence that's available, and they have made the recommendation that Canadians will be able to have 1 dose of vaccine, and then the second dose can be delayed for up to 4 months. This does not come without controversy, but it will allow, as long as we have supply, it will allow us to vaccinate our population at a much faster rate. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
I think the 4-month data, we'll be collecting that as we go along.
Yes.
I mean, theoretically, there's no reason why that shouldn't be fine, but basically we don't have the trial data yet. And of course, we don't have the, in the UK with the 3-month gap, it looks like that's data that Canada's going to be collecting, but it makes sense to give all of the population that basic protection. It's a policy I've been in favour of for some time that the UK is following, and I think other countries are going to be following that as well.
And I would be very concerned about this if Canada did not have a very good surveillance system for post-immunization. Right. But they are following this closely, and this is likely to change. And the gap could get wider or it could get shorter. And so they are analyzing this in real time. It's not like they've made the decision and then they're just going to leave it, as you said.
Yes, there's day-by-day monitoring of the levels of immunity. So what it means is in a month's time, we'll have really good data on how long the immunity lasts for a month. 2 months' time, we'll have really good data. 3 months' time and 4 months' time, we'll have really good quality data collected from Canada. So the problem, it sounds like to me, is not so much the internal logistics and the vaccinators, it's getting the vaccines into the country.
At this point, that is the issue. Now, once we get millions of vaccines that are promised over the next 4 to 6 months, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to manage that. It's going to be a huge effort to manage that. The AstraZeneca vaccine, I think we have 500,000 or 600,000 doses that are coming in over the next week, and those doses are expiring in early April. So this is going to be a test as to how good we are at distribution and actually getting these vaccines into arms. And I know that pharmacists across Canada in some provinces are now going to be used. We've kind of been waiting on the sidelines to see what's going to happen. Some pharmacy technicians even have been now trained to do this. And I really believe if we have supply and we get pharmacists involved, this is going to be a massive game changer. And some are predicting that maybe by summer we might be back into an almost normal, and that would be really great. And I'll do whatever I can to get there.
Do I detect you're itching to go, Lindsay?
Yes, I am. I would actually set up a clinic in my driveway right now if we had vaccine. This is just, everyone is so tired, and this is really a light at the end of the tunnel, and we just have to hang on a little bit longer here. And it's going to be great once we get more vaccines into arms and we just start to see those graphs of cases just going down and community spread goes down.
And we know it will.
Yes, it will. It will.
Yeah.
Yes, we've seen this efficacy. These are highly effective vaccines, and they're safe. And it's miraculous that we have vaccines at this point. This time last year, this was all beginning. We didn't even know much about this virus, and now we have these highly effective vaccines. So.
You give it influenza vax every year anyway, don't you? So this is sort of part of your routine duties, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. This is no. The technique itself and the way that the vaccine goes into the deltoid muscle is no different, and we're used to dealing with vaccines and working with them, and yeah, I would start today. I would vaccinate myself.
Yeah, so would I. I feel the same. You know, if I get a 100 ml bottle of vaccine, I could divide it up into 0.3 ml doses and do 300 people before lunchtime, but unfortunately, it doesn't work quite like that.
Yes, I love Israel's 24-hour vaccination clinics. I wish we would do that in Canada. I would definitely work in one of those clinics. Let's just get this over with. I know everyone's just so done with this.
I do. I've worked plenty of night shifts in my life, that's for sure. A few more would be okay. So there's a serious point here that so many countries, I think, have realised that they have become over-dependent on internationalisation. This kind of last minute, that when you need some medicine or whether you'll get it at last. But of course, now this has been completely shown to be dependent on everything going perfectly all of the time.
Yes.
And in this pandemic, it hasn't. So do you think Canada's going to think, just a minute, we better start making a couple of vaccine producing facilities in Canada?
Yes. Yes, and we do have a few vaccine facilities that are in construction right now. We do have a few national vaccines that are in clinical trials, and so we're definitely investing in this, and there has been recognition that this is something that Canada is lacking. This is something that we need going into the future, because we likely will need booster doses of this vaccine and for other medical products as well. So Canada is heavily investing in a few different facilities. However, these facilities will not be ready until late 2021. There's a facility in Vancouver that will actually be able to produce mRNA vaccines, but that's not until 2023. So I really hope that that investment does continue even once we are post-pandemic, because it is essential, and it's something that Canada is definitely lacking. I hope that we've learned our lesson. Mm-hmm.
So lesson learned, albeit retrospectively rather than prospectively.
Yes, better late than never.
I mean, making the RNA vaccines, as you know, as long as someone's got the genome of a potential new virus, they can actually engineer mRNA vaccines really quickly. Mm-hmm. And as I've said many times, the next pandemic could have a mortality rate 100 times higher than this. It could be killing 50% of the people. So what this means is this pandemic could have shaken Canada into life and could actually save millions of lives in the future. Mm-hmm. But by having those localized facilities, and I know countries all around the world are thinking in the same way. Mm-hmm. And I know our Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he wants a vaccine facility where you get the genome of the virus, and 100 days later you're doing vaccinations.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And I actually think scientifically now that is possible, and especially if you were doing human challenge studies, that is possible.
Yes.
This is such, 5 years ago, this would be unimaginable. Mm-hmm. This really is. I remember about 20 years ago, I was writing an article on genetics in healthcare. There was a few references that said genetics is going to revolutionize healthcare. And you think, well, it hasn't done it yet. But now it has.
Suddenly. Because I remember something similar, and it just seemed like we were so far off, and now
it's right. And now all of a sudden it's come. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned adapting vaccines to new variants, Lindsay. It almost sounds like you think that after this vaccination program, regular top-ups might be needed for a season or 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's your thinking on that?
That's what it's sounding like. It's sounding like that is quite likely, which is also part of the reason why Canada does need local facilities to be able to produce these vaccines. Now, Canada has announced that they will not be requiring clinical trials for facilities that are preparing vaccines that are capable of addressing these variants. So that is something that will help to accelerate. It could be that people are getting booster vaccines, maybe even by the end of the year or early 2022.
We're talking about the third shots here, boosters.
Yes.
Shot boosters. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that could be necessary for a few seasons until we can get rid of this virus.
Yes, it definitely could be. Mm-hmm. It could be incorporated. I wonder if they will be able to, I shouldn't say this, but incorporate it all with the flu vaccine. I don't know if that's possible, but it's something that's been talked about. And you get your flu vaccine, you get your COVID vaccine is in there as well.
Well, MMR, measles, mumps, rubella, is all given as a single shot. So there's precedent for that. That's haven't heard that before. It's an interesting idea. Just out of interest, which camp are you in? I'm in the camp that says, or if I'm being pretentious, the school of thought that says that we can actually eradicate this virus in a few seasons. Or do you think it's going to become endemic and be with us for a few decades?
I think that this virus will probably be with us. I mean, I'm not an epidemiologist and I'm not an expert by any means. It will be with us for the next 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And then we'll wait. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't like to make predictions.
See, I've stuck my neck out. I think it'll be gone in 5 years' time.
I hope you're
Yeah,
right.
again, I'm remarkably foolish in many ways, whereas you're being much more circumspect. But
I think 2 to 5 years. It depends a lot on the variants. But hopefully, as we have people getting vaccinated, I mean, we also have to remember that this is on a global level. So if Canada is vaccinated, that's great. But, you know, we've said it many times, you said it many times, this pandemic is not over for anyone until it's over for everyone. And as long as we have community spread of this virus and we have variants emerging, that affects us globally. And so we will have to wait and see over the next 24 months to 5 years as to how this is going to play out.
We're going to have to decide if we want global eradication or not.
No.
And spend the money and put in the resources and everything that means. Now, we've talked about the vaccine. What about other sort of mitigation strategies, non-pharmaceutical interventions in Canada? I mean, you mentioned relatively poor compliance in British Columbia, but how's ventilation going, for example? One of my hobby horses.
Yes, ventilation and vitamin D, right, John? The two.
Or ventilation and vitamin D, or the lack thereof. Yes.
Yes. Well, John, it's interesting. I actually heard a news report here out of British Columbia a couple of weeks ago, and I honestly thought that they were joking. I could not believe this was actually coming out of my province. So there's a public school here in British Columbia in the city of Abbotsford, BC. And the title on the news report, school officials order windows screwed shut after teachers opened them to increase ventilation. Now, these poor teachers, this is a true story. And these poor teachers are already, Abbotsford, BC is located in an area in my province that has had very high community spread, the highest of the whole province for most of the pandemic. These teachers are already going into classes where they have not reduced the size of the classes. These children are not spaced out 2 meters apart. They are not necessarily masked depending on their age. And now they're trying to open the windows, and they actually were ordered maintenance people went in and screwed them shut, saying there were safety concerns. This is the most absurd.
In case anyone fell out the window.
I don't know. This is the most absurd piece of news that I've heard this whole pandemic. The wing anxiety is high, they report. Of course, anxiety is high. The wing with no ventilation system here houses some 200 students and 18 rooms. And the report concludes by saying, after becoming aware of staff concerns of air quality in our building, our school district conducted an air quality assessment. We received the air quality test results, which confirmed no unusual conditions were evident. And I mean, we are in a pandemic and these teachers cannot open the windows. And I checked today for an update on this because I certainly hope this has been reversed, and I could not find an update. But we know ventilation is one of the most basic and the easiest things you can do. Open the doors, open the windows, reduce the viral load. And here we have teachers who are trying to do exactly this, and someone comes in and screws the window shut. I cannot believe it. So
it really is. It's you know, if we weren't experienced with previous human behavior, we wouldn't believe it. But yeah, nothing more to be said on that, really, is there? It's just
open the windows,
yeah,
please.
Just absolutely stunningly, incredibly, yeah.
But it does show how we think that a certain message has gotten through, and clearly it hasn't. And there are still areas of the community or of the public where these simple public health messages, still we're struggling with them.
And it's not as if it's hard to understand. Everyone understands the idea of blowing out a smell, or it's just common experience. It's just right. Looking forward to the next few months and summer, Lindsay. What's going to happen in Canada?
In Canada, we are going to see restrictions lifted very slowly as vaccinations roll out. Pharmacists are going to start giving a lot of vaccines. We're going to see mass public health clinics, and hopefully the vaccine supply will not fail us, so we can do this. hopefully by summer we will be looking at probably not a totally normal, but close to normal summer. I hope that we also see the seasonality with this virus this summer. We did see cases go down somewhat last summer, and that's a combination of factors. People are able to be outside more, but the virus does seem to like the cooler, more humid temperatures. So I'm hoping that the seasonality of the virus is also going to work in our favor as we head into summer. We all need a bit of a break and a bit of a reprieve. And so spring is just around the corner. Vaccines are coming, and then comes summer. So I think we have much to look forward to.
There will be a seasonality effect. I think that's inevitable. So basically, with good vaccination, we could be looking at a fairly normal autumn, fall, winter time in Canada.
Yeah.
Yes. Fairly normal.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lindsay, that is a fantastic summary of your country. Thank you very much. And if I think you're coming back to talk about some sort of sciencey things later on, but for now, thank you for that Canada update. I know lots of people around the world watch it with interest and appreciate it, as indeed do I. So
thank you very much, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Take care.
Yeah.